Happy championship weekend. It's time to get you covered. The conference title games are upon us. Let's rock and roll. How killer is Kenny when the calendar turns to December? Can Arizona State punch its ticket to the first 12-team playoff?
A star-studded rematch in Atlanta. Can Texas win the SEC in its maiden voyage in the conference? Or will Georgia win their second league title in the last 3 years?
Will Clemson have to pony up the conference crown in SMU's first year as members of the ACC? Or will the Mustangs be the only representative of the ACC in the playoff?
One team knew they'd be here all year. The other got some help along the way. Who comes out on top as Big Ten champs in Indy when top-ranked Oregon takes on Penn State?
We're talking all that and more on this festive Friday morning from the beautiful Moss Art Center studios here in Blacksburg. I'm Giovanni alongside Raza Umerani. Buddy, it's Christmas time. It doesn't get much better than this. Conference title week.
Well, you know what they say, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Listen, it's even better now that we're back on this desk one final time. A lot of traveling, a lot of scheduling conflicts made us take over a month off the show, but you know we had to come back for a championship weekend. We're sitting at 15-21 on the season, but I say let's just throw records out the window. Listen, we finished last year strong in this spot, and if we do the same this weekend, that's all that matters.
You know what's crazy? There's a situation right here, a scenario that if all plays out, you have the Power Four conferences. You could have new members of each of those Power Four conferences take home the crown in their first year in those respective conferences. It's crazy.
I mean, that's college football in 2024. But with that being said, it's time for your weekly bout with the books.
For one final time, we're getting ready to show Vegas who's boss. Give me my theme music. We kick off our favorite weekend of the year with a winner-take-all Friday night fight on the blue turf in Boise. It's the Mountain West Championship game, and the winner goes to the college football playoffs. We're talking about number 10 Boise State and number 20 UNLV.
Funnily enough, in our most recent episode, we picked the regular season matchup between these two teams. And well, we got it wrong when we took the Rebels to beat the Broncos in Vegas. Safe to say, we've learned our lesson. Now don't get us wrong, UNLV is a good team, and Hajj Malik Williams has injected them with life. But Boise State has been destined for a date in the playoff ever since they took Oregon to the brink way back in week 2. For my money, Ashton Jeanty deserves the Heisman Trophy with a monstrous 2,200 yards and 28 touchdowns on the ground this year. He's been the workhorse that has led this team to a point where they might not just make the 12-team field, but clinch that elusive first-round bye. Considering how Boise handled their business in this matchup way back in October, we're going to make amends and stick with them to repeat history at home in what should be an exciting game between the league's top 2 scoring teams. Do it for Kellen Moore.
What a story for head coach Spencer Danielson and the Broncos. A year ago at this time, he was fighting for his job as the interim head coach. That team would go on to win the Mountain West, and a year later, they looked poised to make it back-to-back beauties. Book it, baby! Boise State, -4.
We hope you brought your sunglasses or curtains of choice because we're headed to Jerry World for the Big 12 title game. Iowa State takes on upstart Arizona State with a playoff berth and a potential first-round bye on the line in Arlington.
How refreshing is this? Two teams on a stage that has been ghost-lit for decades. Arizona State looks to win its first conference title since 2007, while Iowa State hunts down the program's first since 1912. The Sun Devils' offense runs through its dynamic tailback, Cam Skattebo, who trails only Ashton Jeanty in average all-purpose yards this season. Skattebo enters on a tear, tallying 6 touchdowns in his last 2 games, while Iowa State's run defense ranks 14th in the Big 12. ASU is also led by freshman quarterback Sam Leavitt, but he could certainly have his hands full as the Cyclones boast the top passing defense in the conference. Leavitt will also be without his most productive target, Jordan Tyson, who leads the nation in receiving over the last 9 weeks. This thing's going to come down to who's able to act like they've been there before. We saw Iowa State nearly let their season slip away from them with back-to-back losses in November. Meanwhile, ASU won its last 5 in a row, including wins over 2 ranked teams. For that, give us the Sun Devils to bring a Big 12 title back to Tempe.
Gio and I have been doing it for months, but considering the nation is about to learn how much of a psycho Kenny Dillingham is, everyone is about to fear the fork all the way to the playoff. Book it, baby. Arizona State, -2.
You know, they say it just means more. So much so that Texas longs to join a lineage of historic champions in the Southeastern Conference. Meanwhile, Georgia has remained resilient and appears determined to fend off the winds of change in a blossoming rivalry between two of college football's best.
Yet another rematch of a game that we picked incorrectly in the regular season. Newsflash, we're wrong a whole lot. Well, like we did with Boise State, we're going to flip our pick and trust what we saw on the field. Back on October 19th, the Dogs walked into Austin and had their way with the Horns in a game that they led 23-0 at halftime. Heck, they could have won by more if the SEC officials weren't peer pressured into changing their calls by the student body. Now, don't get me wrong, Texas hasn't lost since then and arguably has the top defense in the nation, while Georgia got their lunch money taken from them by Ole Miss and just got pushed to the absolute brink by Georgia Tech. But Kirby Smart is built for these moments. He's going to get his team convinced that no one believes in them and is writing them off, and they'll use it as fire. And he's not going to let Steve Sarkisian walk into the SEC and win it in his first year, especially after losing in this spot last year to Alabama to miss out on the college football playoff.
Let the big dogs bark, Raza. Book it, baby. Georgia, +2.5.
Let's take this party to Indianapolis and the house that Peyton Manning built for just the third ever conference championship between two top 3 opponents. Number 1 Oregon takes on number 3 Penn State in an unlikely matchup of two programs who are looking to capture their first conference title of the decade.
You know, this one is super interesting when you beg the question, what's at stake? On one side, everything. Oregon looks to take home a Big Ten crown in its first season as members, while Penn State seeks its first title since 2016. On the other side, both of these teams are comfortably in the playoff no matter what happens on Saturday. The winner likely earns the 1 seed with a bye, while the loser settles for a home game in the first round. The fact of it is, Penn State simply does not win these big games, and this year, Oregon does. The Nittany Lions are 1-13 under James Franklin against top 5 teams, suffering a negative 14-point differential in the process. The lone win all the way back in 2016 with 11 straight losses to follow. Oregon has kicked it into another gear this season and won its top-tier tilt against then number 2 Ohio State. Saturday is going to come down to who has the edge in explosive plays. I'm talking game-changing plays that push the needle. And with their group of receivers and Dillian Gabriel at quarterback, I think that has Oregon written all over it.
Are you sensing the trend that we're riding with the fiery, emotional, passionate head coaches? Dan Lanning is no different. Give us the Ducks to fly to a first-year Big Ten title and a top spot in the college football playoff. Book it, baby. Oregon -3.5.
Last but not least, we wrap things up right here at home in the ACC. After Miami's collapse, thanks to Kyle McCord and the Cuse, number 17 Clemson plays with house money in the ACC title game with a chance at the playoff against number 8 SMU. The biggest question, will it be one or both of these teams finding themselves in the 12-team field come Sunday?
Imagine telling someone 2 years ago that the best team in the ACC in 2024 would be the SMU Mustangs. That's just the reality of the sport nowadays. Red Lashley and his team deserve a ton of credit for making it to this point, and if you ask us or anyone with a functioning brain, they should be in the playoff no matter what happens in this game. With that being said, we're not confident about their chances. We understand that Clemson hasn't exactly been the team we're accustomed to seeing this year. They just lost to South Carolina in a heartbreaker and have looked sluggish against some subpar opposition. But they still rank towards the top of the ACC on both sides of the ball. Plus, these are the Clemson Tigers we're talking about. They've been here before time and time again in the last decade or so. In fact, Clemson is 8-0 all-time in championship games under Dabo Swinney, including a win in 2022 with Cade Klubnik at the helm. SMU has been an awesome story and should be a playoff lock. But until we see Dabo and company fall in Charlotte, we're not going to bet on it to happen.
And with that, we give it a go Tigers and book it, baby. Clemson +2. So with that, let's go ahead and recap. We're taking Boise State and Arizona State to take care of business out west.
Give us Georgia to knock off Texas once again in 2024.
We're rolling with Oregon to fly high and add a Big Ten title to the trophy case.
And finally, we like Clemson to hold strong for the ACC championship and catapult 2 representatives into the college football playoff.
Oh, for everybody that's been along the ride with us, we want to thank you so much from the bottom of our heart for making every Friday morning special here at the Moss Arts Center in Blacksburg.
And if we've lost you money, well, listen, they've got hotlines for that. I love you, brother. It's been a ride. This has been the treat of a lifetime. I'm going to miss you, and I'm going to miss this experience so much, so thank you so much, man. I love you.
I love you too, man. Wish you nothing but the greatest of successes, and maybe we're going to have to run this back like 10 years down the road. But for now, we say enjoy your college football weekend. Enjoy the chaos of this 12-team playoff. And for one last time from here in the Moss Art Center studios,
when they call, you be sure to tell them we got it covered.